Hey everyone, so how we doing today? Uh, well, check out this one. It's fine to protect terrorists' privacy when we have no one to blame when they blow you up. This article is from RT, and it says, Europe now has to be honest with itself. With enemies in their midst, it can either sacrifice some of the legal rights it holds so dear or tolerate the deaths of innocents as a price worth paying for keeping its principles. The decision to pay £500 to Salah Abdeslam, the last man alive of the Paris attackers who killed 131 people in November 2015 as compensation for illegal 24/7 surveillance of his French prison cell since his arrest, has provoked widespread outrage to many. He is lucky to have avoided a public execution, a luxury not afforded to his jihadist gangs victims. Never mind safeguarding his right to use the toilet without being watched. Well, look. If the government's watching you poop, then a line has definitely been crossed. And that is all I will say about that. I mean, but to advocates of the rule of law, there's something of a pedantic triumph to the situation. According to the present legal system, even a convicted man enjoys the same constitutional right to privacy. No one is below the law. Right! That's how things should be. I don't see the problem. Other than as a lightning rod of public anger, the incident is trivial. Withholding the money wouldn't have brought those mowed down in the Batatian back. But it does illustrate the tightrope authorities in Europe have to walk in regards to those who pose a danger to society. The French, Germans, or Brits say they do not want American Patriot Act-style legislation that would give security agencies untrammeled power to snoop on its citizens. I wouldn't want them to have that either. In fact, I don't even know what untrammeled means. Just a quick search here. I always love learning new words. Not limited or restricted, unrestrained. Gotcha. Whether they are just suspects or have already been convicted of some offense. European voices were some of the most outraged at the Snowdown revelations that exposed the true spying capacities of the NSA, while Guantanamo would be politically untenable for any government on the continent. Extrajudicial practices are unacceptable, and the fundamental principles are not violated, at least not openly. And of course, they wouldn't want a Patriot Act-style piece of legislation. That's straight-up dystopian 1984 Big Brother shit. I've already said, as an American, if I had my way, Donald Rumsfeld would be swinging by his neck, if you know what I mean. And yes, I know, some people are probably going to take offense to that. Some people are probably... I'm not going to do anything, I swear. But the Patriot Act was just... It was disturbing. And some people's lives were completely ruined by it. So, somehow the people responsible need to be held accountable. So, Europe, good for you for not wanting to go down that road. Thank you. Europe's law enforcement apparently works with one hand behind its back, having to monitor thousands of people from a distance, but unable to stop them from joining Islamist causes abroad or freely coming back, incapable of curtailing their radical activities at home until they explicitly violate the law, not empowered to step in before something bad happens. Authoritarians will often use that argument, but in the end, more often than not, having the ability to act preemptively just leads to civil rights abuses. It's never been a good thing. If you think I'm wrong, how about you down in the comment section prove to me? Tell me how I'm wrong. Do it. The situation which makes it rich when the same public voices and media complain about authorities not doing enough, particularly in causes where the future terrorist was known to them, most recently illustrated last month. when MI5 had to explain to relatives of the victim of the 2017 London Bridge attack why it did not stop the deadly vehicular assault, despite being aware of the chief perpetrator for several years. Excuse me. But what was MI5 supposed to do? Snatch him off the street and take him to a black site? Or try to convict him and thousands of other potential jihadists through a closed court without sufficient evidence? Despite public assurances that all violence is unacceptable, it often appears that Europe has made its unspoken peace with its own laxness as repeated attacks, from Charlie Hebdo to Nice to Manchester Arena to Los Robles, have not resulted in any open change in approach. Or perhaps authorities believe that as much as can be done is already being done behind the scenes. UK Home Secretary Sajid Javid boasted in May that 19 major terrorist attacks have been foiled in the past 2 years alone, and hundreds more prevented before they took shape. But no one can promise that even this is the new baseline. Javid himself warned that the frequency of the plots is growing. So unless there has been a breakthrough in prevention, there is no reason to assume that there won't be future attacks of the same magnitude, or ones designed to stop them from greater attention. Most fundamentally, the problem of which terrorism is only the sharp edge has not been resolved. There are still tens of millions of poorly integrated migrants living deprived lives in the suburbs of the continent's large cities. And with migration, their proportion will only grow. Most of them will not buy chemicals and nails online, but they will bring a host of social problems. So Europe has not just to ask itself whether privacy in prisons is sacred, but if it can abandon freedom of worship by banning religious schools and mosques that teach anti-Western ideologies. If it should target people in neighborhoods on the basis of race and religion, if migrants are to be accepted, no questions asked, if there are even violent radicals among them, if it must maintain the liberal justice system that saw Abdeslam and his friends getting only fines and months-long sentences for drug dealing and robberies, or the Social Security that gave them thousands of euro in benefits that he used to finance the purchase of guns and peroxide. How much longer can Europe put off these questions, pretending that nothing has changed in its cozy little old world? I make no apologies for my ideology of freedom, and you shouldn't either. Yes, it can create opportunities for people to do horrible, horrible things. But if you give the state preemptive capabilities, it could be you next. Look what they're doing in China, where they're basically creating a human version of Pavlov's dogs. As just one example. Preemptive monitoring will be abused. It is not worth the price. And I understand if you are someone who had a family member who was a victim of terrorism. I understand if you can't see it my way. But you got to understand, there's way too much historical precedence for how this kind of thing could be abused. And quite frankly, we have the right to privacy and not being monitored by a big brother nanny state. Maybe I can meet you halfway here and say that maybe, just maybe, if someone has a criminal history, that some monitoring can take place. And I'm not talking about security cameras. I'm not talking anything that would directly violate their privacy. But have the police exercise caution so they can be ready when they commit another crime. But believe me, I understand the logic behind this desire for this sort of preemptive measures. But these preemptive measures are just going to be abused. And hey, you know what? If you think I'm wrong about that, prove me wrong in the comments. Show me something. Tell me something. Do something. The state will abuse that power before long. Yeah, you'll see crime lower, but you also see civil rights abuses rise. It's a tightrope walk. It's a balance. It's unfortunate when people die, but people die. Sorry. I don't mean that to be calloused. Anyway.